Welcome back, everybody. I'm Brenda Rigney. I'm your host of the X podcast, and I'm super excited to have on today Kim Barnes Jefferson. How are you doing today, Kim?
I am doing wonderful. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited for our conversation today. So, just so everyone knows, Kim is the creator of the Belly Fat Code, and she's all about helping women over 40 feel strong, confident, and right at home in their bodies, which is the perfect topic today for our audience because on the X, we talk to midlife women, business owners, and we're always juggling the things, the kids, the aging parents, the clients, the partners, the dogs that I was just talking about, whatever those things are. We're juggling all of it. And I find when I talk to my clients and also audiences that tune into the X podcast, we sometimes put ourselves last, right? We put our body last. We put like our mindset around our health last, all these things.
Well, honestly, it's easy. Many of us, it's easy for you to put parents and everything else ahead of ourselves. The biggest thing I always tell people, we have to set up boundaries. And boundaries, I know, might seem like this big scary word, and you don't want to be
Mhm.
the bad guy for saying no. But boundaries are what protects us. I just recorded a podcast myself, and we were talking about boundaries. And we were saying how that it is a protective for our own self care, and that
Right.
we are always giving, 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 giving. And a boundary doesn't have to be this like 400 step thing. It could just
Right.
be, I'm going to every morning for 15 minutes do whatever the heck I want, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, kids, figure out breakfast on your own. I'm no longer going to be mom's cafe. Maybe someone else walks the dog. Maybe someone else does carpool, but it's like 15 minutes of you doing you. And you don't have to define what it is, but it's like taking 15 minutes to give yourself that like moment, and it could just be setting a bedtime and making sure you read a book. I always tell people start with like 15 minutes, because once you get that 15 minutes and it feels good, you're going to want more. And then it can grow
Yeah.
and expand.
But I love that because, like, again, how I was envisioning this conversation to go about was you were going to give us like this, like 10-step process to like health, but you're working out or routines or nutrition plans. But what you're saying is like even fundamentally like this skill that we need to develop in ourselves that then in turn will help our health, which is setting boundaries, which I love because I'm going right away to, okay, like the reason why I might have belly fat is that like I'm, eating too many carbs or whatever those things are. And you're going to give me again, a recipe or a formula for that. But you're saying, no, actually, if I learn how to set boundaries in place first, then I'm going to start committing to myself first.
Right. Because I see it all the time. Everyone listening here, who hasn't had a more than 40-hour job? Who hasn't had
Yeah.
a boss that was like straight up, like is so freaking demanding that you're like, you don't
Right.
have a life outside this place. Right. So what I see is that women, yeah, they come to me, they're like, Kim, oh my God, I want to feel comfortable in my body. I want to lose the belly fat. I want to this, and this. And I give them things to do. But then I
Hmm.
see they can't make the time
Right.
to go to the gym, make the time to do the recipe, make the time to, do the things I give them to do. And then they're like, this program's not working. And I'm like, but you didn't work the program. So the program only works if you work it.
Yeah.
So
So
first,
there's some fundamentals you got to put in place before you even think about opening up the page to the program.
right. So it's like, if you aren't willing to give yourself time, the program's not going to work for you. Like, just
Right.
giving me your credit card. It's just giving me your credit card. I'm not magical. I mean, I wish I could be like, thanks, Brenda. Bling.
Yeah, like, do you have ruby red shoes that I can, like, click together and it's like belly fat is gone? Because that's what I would
Right.
really love. I don't wanna do the work. So how did you get into this work, Kim? Let's go back in time a little bit. Like, what was the calling for you to do this work and help out, 40 plus women? I'm just kinda curious about that.
So when I first started as a trainer, I was one of the I did, being doing a trainer is my second career. So
Okay.
I was one of the older trainers, and at the time I was 35. Like, so that was like, I was one of
Okay.
the older,
Like, that is
and
not old,
but most of the trainers on the floor were like in their like mid to late 20s. And
but okay.
so I knew what it was like to have that over 40 job, over 40-hour job,
Mhm.
demanding boss, and trying to come to the gym. I knew what that was. I knew what that was like. And so I was able to have those conversations with the people who came to the gym. So even when I was under 40, I was attracting the 40 something year olds because they were working, and I
Yeah.
understood what it was like to have a corporate job and not be able to come here all the time. And I used to travel 100,000 miles a year. So I understood what it was like to
Wow.
be like, you show up to work and all of a sudden you're on a plane. Like I understood all those things. So I was able to
Mhm.
give them tips and hacks for travel, going out to dinner with clients, how to do that and not feel like you either were like going all crazy or being the girl with a glass of water and a salad.
Right.
So that's how it started. And then as I was approaching 40, I was working out, I was doing all the things, but my body was like, girlfriend, no. I was like, I like put on 10 pounds a year for 3 years. And I was like, clearly there's something wrong here. Something is clearly
Yeah.
wrong. And I went to my doctor and I was like, and she had been my doctor since I was 25. So she had a long history with
Oh,
me.
that's good.
And so I came to her and she's like, oh, Kim, you're not 25 anymore. And you really should stop eating sandwiches. And I was like,
That's it?
I
Okay.
took a deep breath. I sat on my hands because I'm like, I cannot go to jail today. Like, like that's not the answer that I wanted to hear. Like, I don't. I used to go to her once a year. Like, I'm a healthy person, and I'm like, are you
Right.
freaking kidding me? Like, you didn't even ask me anything, and you told me to not eat sandwiches, and like,
Yeah.
and I'm 40, and that's life, and I couldn't accept it. I was like, no, you're. I'm like, thank you. See you next year. And I like drove home like pissed. And I was like, other people might be experiencing this. So the next year I
Mhm.
go back and I asked her to check my thyroid. And literally I had to like bully her into checking my thyroid. And she did the bare minimum. And again, I was like, I went home and I just literally just, I played Dr. Google and I just went down this rabbit hole. And I happened to find a functional medicine doctor who was like, "Oh, girl, you're perimenopause," and I was like, "What? What is that?" Like, I have no. I'm
Oh,
like,
I keep hearing this conversation and it's like, why, and not to interrupt here, but why can't we, like, I don't know, like, you have my birth certificate. Why can't there just be like a notification that goes out and says, "Hi, you're 40 years old. You're probably going to be going through perimenopause if you're not in it already."
or why didn't my doctor just be like, "You're," instead of saying, "Ugh, Kim, you're just 40." Why couldn't she say, "Well, some people experience menopausal symptoms
Yes.
about 10 years prior to actual menopause," and at
There
that
you go.
point, I would have been like, really? Oh. And I would have been like, I would have perked up and then I would have gone home and Googled perimenopause. But at the
Right.
time, I'm just Googling like stubborn weight loss, like because I'm like, I'm working out, I'm eating right, like something is wrong here. And the more I dove into this, the more other women were like, perimenopause, I never heard of that. And like none of my friends had ever heard of that. And it was probably a good like 3 or 4 years before I even had a hot flash that that was like, okay, now I
Yeah.
feel like this is more
Now
menopause,
you're
but
in it.
everything else prior were just really random weird symptoms that could have been anything.
Right. Yeah. And I love that because I've experienced that. I've talked to lots of women that experienced it. It's just like, and you don't know. And sure, there's information on Google. Sure, there's books and also, mentors, coaches, people that are generally in the wellness community that are there to help you. But it's all these like sort of isolated diagnosis, right? So it's just like, the other extreme that I've also heard from women that have had early onset of or starting to get the perimenopausal symptoms is anxiety, right? So now we're talking about mental health,
Yes.
and then they're going on medications and pharmaceutical drugs to treat mental illness, but it's not mental illness, and I'm not diagnosing people, I'm not a practitioner. It's like I'm going through perimenopause, like this spike
Right.
in this shift in my hormones, etc., are spiking different cortisol levels, which is causing anxiety. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going through maybe depression. It is a form of depression, but it's not related to, say, a mental illness depression. I'm going through perimenopause. And
Right.
it's just the isolation of these diagnoses versus saying, hey, you know what? You're over 40. These are things that are going to be starting to happen to you. It doesn't all happen at once. Sometimes it does. These are, things that you can expect. And if it happens, this is what we can do about it.
Yeah. And it's like, I think about, when we were in school, they all gathered us in like the eighth grade and they said, here's the birds and the bees talk, right?
Yeah, and for women, girls, young women, you're going to go through your period. You're going to you start menstruating. Yeah.
And I don't even remember if they even said
They didn't.
menopause. I don't
No.
and no, or then I was like, as I'm like, as you kind of had other like health courses, I don't
Yeah.
think we ever talked about. I think it was more like a one line sentence, like you'll have your period and then you won't. Like I think that was just it. And
Yeah, but it's like, but even then, they didn't even really explain the period piece. Now I think they're a little bit like my kids have gone through that, but they're a little bit more descriptive. And obviously, I'm a lot more communicative as a parent. Not knocking my parents, but yeah, no,
right,
like we all kind of found out the hard way too when went through our period the first time, probably.
right. So that's how I came across it, because as as I'm diving in about myself, I'm finding there are other women like me who are just like, what the heck?
Right. Awesome. So, like when we think about prioritizing health and juggling all the things, right? And like I think the key thing, like you just unlocked there, is that we might not even know that we're in perimenopause, right? So it's like, what would be some of like the first steps that you would recommend women take, and even after they know that they're in perimenopause, where should they go? I'm just kind of curious about those sort of next steps.
So, I'm going to tell a shocking statistic. There's over 150 different symptoms that could be
That
associated
many?
with, yeah, that could,
Oh,
and
I
it's
thought it was like 20 or something. That's
no, and it's
crazy.
random, and it's random. So, like, you talk about the mental
Hmm.
part, brain fog, energy,
Hmm.
anxiety,
Hmm.
um, are pieces, dry skin, dry eyes, hair falling out,
Yes.
um, and not being able to, like, joint pain, not being able to
Mhm.
recover as quickly as you once, and then the thing that most people associate with, the hot flashes, not being able to sleep at night, like, so those
Mhm.
are like kind of like the big daddy of them. But then it's like, as you kind of like start to unpack, there's all these like random things that happen that most people are like, I don't know, am I dying or is it menopause? So
Yeah.
there's a thing called the green climatic scale that you can um, look at all the varying symptoms of what could potentially be menopause. And I recommend people do that so that they
Mhm.
can have an open conversation with their doctor. And I'm going to say something that, some people might ruffle some feathers, is that start to track this like right now, so that every year when you go back for your physical, you can kind of see, are my symptoms increasing or my symptoms subsiding? Because when I have this piece of paper in my hand, I can start to have a conversation with my doctor,
Right.
and that my doctor hopefully won't blow me off. Now, if my doctor blows me off, time to get a new doctor,
Mm.
because there are interventions that we could do for hormonal changes that some doctors aren't on board with, and they've been, some of the, at least here in the US, the myths that we've had in the US, they've been blown up. There
Right.
was a 1990s study, Women Health Initiative study, that pretty much like brought all women's healthcare for uh, postmenopausal back to the Stone Age, and now that study has been debunked. So if they're
Right.
still believing that study, time to get a new doctor.
Okay. That's a good reference point right there. Start, and I mean, you gave the example of you've had the same physician for the last, whatever you've had since you were 25, which is amazing. Not all women have had that. I haven't
No,
had it. There was like a 13-year gap where I didn't have the same physician, and nor did my children. And we were going to clinics and seeing different doctors all the time. And they
right.
were taking notes, but I have no idea what they were taking notes on.
How the notes translated from one to the next.
Exactly. And now we do, which is amazing, but it took us a long time to find them because
Yes.
general practitioner, GP doctors, it's kind of a dying trade right now. Like they're not necessarily that available. And there's also so many people that need healthcare. We got the boomers, we got all these people coming in, depending on where you are in the world. So it is a privilege to have, I think, a GP that like knows your history, that it's been around for like 20 years, to see this evolution in some of your hormonal changes as a woman. So I think the idea about keeping a journal, keeping track, yeah, because like I wasn't having hot flashes literally like 3 months ago, and now I'm having hot flashes. Like I'll literally just be like, "What? I'm like so hot right now. What's going
Right.
on?"
And you're like, I'm just sitting still. And why does it seem like I just ran a marathon?
And I get dizzy, and like it happened the other day in the car. We were like just driving, doing errands, and my partner Scott's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I think I'm having a hot flash," because you don't even really know. It's not like there's an announcement, and then it's like,
No.
"Is that a hot flash, or am I dizzy? Am I like hungry? Like what's going on right now? Like I just, am I hypoglycemic? Like what's happening?" And after you've had like a few of them, you're like, "Okay, that is a hot flash."
Yeah.
So now I'm putting that down in my journal because I'm actually seeing my doctor in mid December, and I'm gonna be like, okay, Allison, I'm getting hot flashes.
Yeah, and like track and like I said, take that green chromatic scale and just track this stuff, because that way you can have a conversation, because doctors like data. They don't like, we're emotional, and where there's data like, I don't even know where we are but like in November I started experiencing these 5 things, and then next
Right.
year you're like, guess what, 3 more things have been added to the list, and then
Yeah,
maybe things have come off the list, but at
exactly.
least it starts the conversation.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what are some of the shifts that you think that women can start making, like around their health, like that are like, again, the people that we're talking to on the podcast today, they're business owners, they're juggling the things, they've got kids and aging parents. Like, what are like, yeah, I'm not training for a marathon starting next week. So, what are some things that I can do though to like reduce the belly fat, to like, to feel better about my body? Like the joint pains are starting to settle in. What are some things that you would suggest?
So I am the most basic person that you'll ever meet when it comes to health. Let's be honest, we've all done the complicated, and the
Yeah.
complicated just made us crazy. And so I'm done with the complicated, because by the time women come to me, they've done at least 60 different diets. And
Yeah.
we've become so afraid of all the random foods, the seed oils, the workouts. Like we've been there, done that. We've got the t-shirt.
Right.
The 3 things that I tell women, like, let's start here. Number one, get a good night freaking sleep. And I'm talking 7 hours of sleep. I'm saying set yourself a bedtime like you are a 9-year old.
Yeah.
And whatever time you need to get up, go back 7 hours and
Okay.
put yourself to bed. And have a routine. You know how like when your kids had a routine. There was tubby time, and then all the stuffed animals had to be set up a certain way. And then there was
Yeah.
5 stories and a glass of water, and like whatever it is that you need to create a ritual to start to power down your engines. That's
Yes.
what we need to start doing, so we can get 7 hours of sleep. Now, you're not going to knock it out of the park every damn night. I know that.
So
But
don't be
at
hard on
least,
yourself. Don't like give yourself like a scorecard or anything, but track it,
right.
right?
But it's like, if I can at least like 80% of the week get myself down for 7 hours, rock on with your bad self. If you're now at 4 and you start to get 5, rock on with your bad self. Like, we're just trying to make sure we're trying to get up there to 7. And that's going to be your benchmark, not your like, I must do this. Like, don't, like, just do your best to get 7, and just work towards it. It might take you a couple months, it might take you a year, but it's something we want to work towards. The
Okay,
second
cool.
thing
Yeah.
is nutrition, right? Nutrition is queen. Like, if your nutrition sucks, I don't care how hard you work at the gym. I don't care
Mhm.
what, like, it's never going to work. So 80% of your nutrition needs to be healthy. Now, do I need to get organic? Do I need to shop at Whole Foods and all that? No, no, no.
Mhm.
What
Okay.
I'm asking you is look at your nutrition right now. And I don't need to tell you the crap. You guys know what is the crap. And I'm talking like crap. I'm not trying to get nitpicky and being like, you can't have seed oils and you can't have gluten. I'm talking about the straight up
Yeah.
fast
It's the
food.
it's the super hot red Doritos.
Yes, the fast food, the hot red Doritos, the pulling stuff off your kid's plate. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like, look at what you're actually eating and come to Jesus with the stuff you should be eating.
Okay.
And now, and that, I'm not saying never eat it, but it's going to be 20% of what you eat, not 70% of what you eat.
Yeah.
20% of what you eat. Like, life sucks
That's
without
that's
fun.
easy enough to do versus I think sometimes we get into the whole should I have rice or potatoes or should I be doing this or should I be doing that? And it's like you're just saying, hey, you know what? Cut the crap. Like,
Right. Start here. Start looking at your plate, and we all know the
yeah.
crap we eat. We know it. So let's just start there, and then we can start getting nitpicky. But like, let's pull the crap. The other thing, let's look at our drinking. I'm
Mm,
not saying never have a drink, but what I'm saying is it's really easy to come home after a long day and grab
yeah.
that bottle of something, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I challenge my clients to do is that instead of having that glass every single day, because like we're not buying a high end bottle of wine on a Monday. And now, if you are, I'm all about that life for you. But most of us are buying the cheap crap because we want to have that glass of wine at night. But what if you saved up and you had that nice bottle of wine on Friday night, or
Hmm.
that nice bottle of wine on Saturday night, versus every day you're having that like $5 or $10 bottle of wine.
Right.
So look at the booze, and then stress.
Mm,
And I get that. And I say this because last night I was on a call with my membership, and we were talking about, our setting up for the new year. What what
Right.
what are you, what are you working on? And this one woman was like, Kim, she's like, when I first started working with you, I used to roll my eyes at you when you're just like, you gotta like figure out your stress. And I thought, you don't know my life. And she said, you made me sit down and write down everything that stresses me out. Everything. She's just like,
Hmm.
just write it down. And she said it. And then she's like, just every day, just take a look at it and just be like, is that really my problem?
Hmm.
And I said it like, and I said, and I'll tell you guys, say it in the whiny voice, like, is that really my problem? And if you say it in that like whiny voice, sometimes something pops up that like you won't even know where that voice came from. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're like, well, then whose problem is it? So then it makes you ask yourself better questions versus what we normally do is like we pile on, pile on, pile on when it comes to stress. And so one of the things what happens with stress is we have two responses. You don't eat, so you're not getting good nutrition, you don't sleep,
Right.
or you're just stuffing down the
You're snacking.
feelings.
Yeah. You're compensating for the
Right, you're
stress.
stuffing down the feelings, or you're procrastinating by having food, so that you whatever it is that's stressing you out, you're not taking the action.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who and if you're someone who says, "Ma, you just don't know my life," I do know your life because I'm a recovering stress ball. So I know exactly what it's like to think
Right.
I have to be the hamster that's turning the earth. Like I know what that
Yeah.
is like.
Yeah.
And I remember this is my doctor when this I'm in my 20s now, and I literally had migraines every single day.
Wow.
I had heartburn every single day. I just felt like nausea every single day. And when I went to her, she was like, you need to read the book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I
Mm.
was
Oh, yeah.
like,
That's classic.
I took time off from work. What do you mean you're giving me a book? I was thinking I'm going to be going to CVS on my way home. And that was kind of so me don't sweat the small stuff and take yoga. And those are like the two kind of like reasons why I kind of stuck with her because it forced me to slow myself down. And I'm fortunate that I had that conversation in my 20s versus I don't think many doctors have that conversation now.
No, and I also think like going back to the group that we're talking about here, midlife women, women over 40, like you are capable, I say this to my clients all the time, of doing multiple things. Like you are smart, you're intelligent, you're this multifaceted individual. You've gotten so far in your career and in your business. And yeah, you can juggle multiple plates. Great. There's the gold star. You can wear that. But you got the brownie
But
points,
why?
whatever. Like, congratulations. You won the best award for that. Now take a different path. Now try
Yes,
something else. Like, how could you also be successful, this great leader in your business, this great, community person, great mom, whoever, like, whatever title you want to have without doing 20 things all at the same time?
exactly.
And then, and then does that reduce the stress? Like now that's your next challenge in life. Because like
Yeah,
up until now, like 0 to 40, boom, you're amazing. You conquered it. You're the amazing multitasker. But you can't, I don't think like we can, like this whole like multitask, juggling 50 plates in the air. It's not going to help us out. And our body doesn't want it. Like our body's basically saying, hey, there's a shift happening. You're not ready for it because no one told you it was coming. We already talked about that. Like the medical community doesn't knock on your door and say, "Hey, you're 40, you're going through perimenopause."
right.
But your body is going to go through these changes and it can't keep up with what you're doing in your 20s.
Exactly, and one of the things it's our hormones. So the hormone that gives us the resilience is progesterone,
Right.
and progesterone it's wonky, right? So we don't have that bounce back that we
Yeah.
used to. The bounce back from just all the mental stuff going on up here, but
Right.
also the physical. So many of us would love to go to the gym and just like beat the crap out of ourselves, and those beat down workouts they no longer serve us anymore either.
No, but I think that's what you're talking about. It's like, okay, if you want the energy, if you want the resiliency in your body to still bounce back the way you can at 40 or 50 is to get the sleep,
Yes.
cut the crap out of your diet, reduce the booze, eat those whole foods, right? Get back into nutrition again and reduce the stress. You'll
Mm-hmm.
get more energy, less bloating, less what's the other, inflammation, right? That
Yeah.
creates that joint pain and stuff. So then you will have the energy that you need at 50. It's not going to be the same
Right.
energy you had at 20, but it's going
Right.
to be the energy of a 50-year-old, like a healthy 50-year-old.
Right. And those things, those are the needle movers, right? And so then when you get that going, then we can get sophisticated, right? Everyone wants to do physics. I want to do physics. And I'm like, let's just start with basic math, nail basic math, and then we can go physics. Like I love physics and I
Astrophysics.
love getting, I love getting under the engine and getting all nitty gritty, but like if you don't understand the basics, me jumping to physics, you're gonna be like
Yeah.
having a conversation with Albert Einstein about relativity.
I wrote down your three things right now. I can honestly say, yeah, like there are times where it's like my partner is like really good at going to bed at 10 o'clock. And I stay up till like 11,
Right.
11:30
And you're not
because I'm
curing
like,
cancer.
it's almost competitive with us. I'm like, I can stay up later than you. And it's like, it's actually not serving me like to be that
Right.
competitive. Yeah.
And you're not like, and it's like I always tell, like the first time I was told to have a bedtime, because like I used to pass out in front of the TV like everyone else listening to this. And I remember I was working out at night and I was always missing my workouts because my boss sucked. And my trainer at the time was like, well, why don't you work out in the morning, Kim? That thought never even occurred to me. And I was like, the morning? I was like, the
That's
morning?
possible. Yeah.
And he said, well, Kim, he's like, well, what time do you go to bed? I'm like, when I go to bed, like I'm an adult. And then he's like, well, why don't you start going to bed at 10 o'clock? And he's like, then you can get up at 6 and go to the gym. And I was like,
Right.
what? And that started, he's like, what are you doing at night? He's like, after you have dinner, what are you doing for 3 hours?
Yeah.
Not curing cancer, not solving peace in the Middle East.
Now, probably like making an Instagram reel for your business or something, but like, is it going to rock the world? Like, it's going to be the windfall post, like the windfall post that's going to bring in like six figures. I doubt it. So just
No.
like go to bed.
And the one thing that I will say from in my post COVID, Kim, is that I started reading for pleasure. And so now I don't know, I've read probably over like 300 books, and now it's like that's Kim
Mm.
time. Like, and my husband tries to like encroach on my like bedtime, and I was like, what's happening here? Why are you here? Like, this is my time. This is Kim time. I am so protective of it. I'm like, wind down time. Do you need anything? I'm out.
Okay. Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, I've enjoyed this conversation so much just personally. I'm like, oh, are we recording for a podcast right now? Like this is awesome. But I really, really appreciate all the insight you shared. I have one or two questions for you, just even as a business owner,
Sure.
if you're okay if we go into that. So, what's been the best piece of advice that you've gotten from somebody? It could be a coach, but just in general, that you've taken into your business and you're still using today.
Know your season.
Mm, okay, share more about that.
So I think all of us, we kind of have people that we look up to, the
Mhm.
varying people that we think are ahead of us, right? And that we
Right.
aspire to be that person. And I remember, when I've been in the game for like 15 years. And so when I started, I just was like, oh, so and so's doing whatever they're doing. So I must do it. And I created a Me Too business. And
Mhm.
a few years into my own doing my own thing, I hired this coach, and she asked me, she said, you got to run your own race. She's like, what season are you in right now? And she's like, you got to pick your pace and make peace with it. And everyone listening here, we all have a different season, so like you said, aging parents. Some of us might have aging parents who have a lot of needs, and I might not be able to sprint like Brenda. I might not be able to
Mhm.
sprint like Linda, but I got to find that pace that's going to help me keep sane, but
Yeah.
also be able to support my aging parents. I have a client, her kid is like an elite basketball player. And
Hmm.
from literally October through April, she's running here,
Full
there, and
on.
everywhere,
Yeah, full on
trying to
with
get
that.
him somewhere. So it's like, you have to know that from October to April, that's my blackout period. And I need to be able to understand what's possible for me in that time. But
Hmm.
once May hits, I got a little bit more time. So now that's my sprinting zone.
Right. I love that. I love that. And what has been a challenge for you in your business or a goal that you've been working on this year? And what have you learned from that? Like that experience of working on that challenge or that goal in your business?
You know, my biggest challenge in my business was, if I go back to when I started, everyone did like 500 different programs. And so you
Mhm.
felt like you needed to do 500 different programs. I mean, create
Right.
500 different programs. So it was like
Yeah. All these
program
offers.
A, program B, program C. And you were always, I felt like popcorn. You were always offering something. And the one thing that I've been working on probably for the last like 2 years is being boring. And
Mhm.
so when I say being boring, it's very similar to the three things I gave you, right? Nutrition is never going to go out of style.
Yeah.
Sleep is never going to go out of style. Stress management is never going to go out of style, right? Those
Right.
three things are always going to be a challenge for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And so if I thought, so, when I started talking about belly fat, I was like, am I going to get bored? And no, I mean, I've run the program like 6 times, and
Mhm.
every time I find a different way to talk about belly fat,
Right.
talk about the varying, causes of belly fat, talking about, all the things. But it was like, that was my biggest challenge was, how do I just talk about one freaking thing
Mhm. Yeah.
versus feeling the pull to be like, should I be
Be
talking more?
everything.
Right. Should
Yeah.
I talk more about menopause? Should I talk more about this? And it's like, menopause comes up, but it's in a belly fat umbrella, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's the biggest challenge. And for, like, all of you guys who might be just starting out, it's okay if you just do one thing, right? Think
Mhm.
about like McDonald's. When you think of McDonald's, you don't think about all the other crap they sell. You think
Yeah, you think
about
about
burgers,
fries. Like
right?
or
See,
burgers. Yeah, burgers or
right,
fries. Yeah.
right.
Like
But
it's
like,
just like yeah.
everyone has like one thing that you think about that McDonald's does. McDonald's does French fries, or they do the quarter pounder, or they do a hamburger.
Mhm.
Like, whatever it is, you
Right.
think of one thing that McDonald's does, and that's boom, you think of McDonald's. And I want you to think, like, so now when you're building your business, how can you become McDonald's? Like, when someone hears Kim Barnes Jefferson, I want them to think belly fat, right? When they think of Brenda, I want you to think about midlife women building a business. So it's like,
Mhm.
how do I McDonaldize my business? And that's how I was able to start to come to Jesus on the like one thing. But the second part was that it was less complicated. Like, for me to be on this podcast, be
Yeah.
like, well, Brenda, I can also talk about this. And then like, now I'm like, no, I talk
No.
about belly fat.
Yeah.
I talk
Yeah.
about women who feel like their bodies gave them the finger, and everyone is like, I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm there. And
Yeah.
that was the hardest, like, I would say my biggest pill that I had to swallow.
So not only, yeah, so when you talk about this boring business and having one thing to talk about, one, it's like you may think it might be boring, really, but I say that to my clients all the time. Like, if you've got this creative gene and you just want to be constantly creating, go take up painting. Like, literally, like create a simple, boring business to operate and talk about that one thing. Your back end operations, like your tech, your branding, your sales process, all those things will become a lot easier. Now you have more time on your more time available to you because you're not creating all this stuff in your business because you're focused on that one thing and you're creative. Go take up painting, like go learn how to crochet, go take up a new sport, go make a new friend, go
Yeah.
have like a date night with your partner, like do other things in your life. Your business is not your whole life. But I
Yeah.
think sometimes, and I'm maybe generalizing, but as women entrepreneurs, we're leaving corporate. Now we've got this like carte blanche. We can create all these things. We can make up our own
Right.
world. I love it. But there's other aspects to us. There's like relationships that we can foster. We can do work in our community. We could go run for public office. Like there's lots of things. And again, not to pile on more stuff on our plate, but if you got this creative energy, like go use it in other ways, not just always putting it back into your business. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
Very cool. So, Kim, you talk about your belly fat code, and you've given us a gift. I think a link to 5 days to crack your belly fat code. Is that still good? We
Yes.
can share that with everybody. We'll put that in the show notes.
Hmm.
What can they expect when they click on that link and they get it from you? What can they expect from that?
So it's a 5 day, it's a private podcast. So you
Okay,
can listen to it on the go on your app. And basically
awesome.
I walk you through, just kind of a high level of what you can expect. One, why you have belly fat. Two, what are the choices that you have to start thinking about in order to get rid of this belly fat? we talk
Mhm.
about how do I start to become more consistent? And that's really the biggest chunk of all the work I do is teaching my clients to become consistent. Just like you, it's
Nice.
like, how do you become consistent with your business? Where like you post one day and then you're like, you're off over here, and then you post 3 weeks later, or you make a sales call every month. How do you become,
No, it's not gonna
yeah,
happen. Yeah, it's not gonna fly. Yeah.
yeah. How do you become consistent? And finally, how do you create your own code? As a 40 something year old woman, we were
Mhm.
always taught follow diet X and that'll save you. But if I start to create my own code based on my life, based on the time I have, based on the foods I like, based on the workouts I
Right.
like, I'm going to do it. Right. When you tell me to do something, I am a rebel. You tell me to do something, I'm going to find a way to rebel against it. But if I create it, I'm like, I could do this.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true on like any level. I talk about that even inside my business coaching, time with my clients. It's like you can follow my recipe, but at the end of the day, it's got to be your business. You've got to, make it work for you, the time that you want to put into it, the money that you want to invest in it, whatever those things are. So, here I can show you my successes based on this formula, but at the end of the day, this is where it's going to work for you. So I totally agree with that as far as your health plan, your nutrition plan. I love that. And where can people find you, Kim?
So you can find me. I hang a lot on Facebook, so you can find me at Kim Jefferson on Facebook. I also you can find me on Instagram as Kim Jefferson Coach on Instagram.
Lovely. And one last question for you. If I was to
Sure.
give you a billboard and you could put it
Mm.
anywhere in the world and it could say anything that you want on it, what would it say and where would you put it?
Oh Lord, ooh, 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 that's a tough one. Um, I know what I would say, but I can't tell you. I'm like, where would I put it? I would on the billboard. I would say, "Life's too short. Have the cookie."
Okay. Kim said
And
this. Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
and then I don't know where I would put it. That
Where do
is a
you live in
tough
the
one.
world? Where are you in the world
I
right
live in
now?
Boston.
Okay. Well, I mean, where's the epicenter of Boston right now? Like, I'm thinking I've been to Boston a couple times downtown, like where, like off the shipyard or like restaurant areas down there. I don't know,
Yeah,
or like Times Square, or like where.
I guess Times Square. We could say Times
Yeah.
Square.
Okay, Times Square. Okay, that's always a good default for people is like Times
Yeah.
Square, right? Like where the apple drops on New Year's. Okay, awesome. So thanks so much for being on here today, Kim. It's been awesome hearing your story, but also getting behind the scenes into your business, and then these fabulous tips that you have through the Belly Fat Code. I know that people are going to download this private podcast, which I would say just as a note for business owners that are listening, that is an awesome freebie to give to people because the audience that you're working with, women over 40, we're juggling all the things. Like just drop it in the car on the way to doing stuff. You're going to get these great messages from Kim. That's an awesome freebie. So congratulations on setting that up for your business.
And they're the episodes are like 7 minutes. They're not, it's not an investment. Like it's not like one of those like Huberman podcasts where you have to be in the car for 5 hours. It's
I love those. I'm always like, oh my gosh, I'm taking massive notes. I feel like I'm in a lecture hall series, but yeah, he is a Stanford professor. But I think that is cool. So 7 like nuggets like of gems, like 5 private podcasts. Like that is like business owners out there do that. I think that's a winning formula. And so thanks, Kim, for being on here today. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you soon.